All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Commodore fans of all ages, welcome back to the Vandy Sports YouTube channel. We are back again doing our position previews for the season or spring practice. But anyway, the Vanderbilt rosters have been refreshed, updated, polished. So now we are going over them by position. This one, we're going to focus on defensive line. And my oh my, we got a lot to talk about, Justin, but
Yes, we do.
probably not as much as you like to talk about the offensive line that we did earlier.
No, I don't think very much of defensive linemen. I'll talk about them.
So, as always, we will remind you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are going to be putting content, I guess creative content. You could call this creative. It's just two dummies talking about football. But actually, one dummy. You're the expert.
I'm not much of an expert.
But as always, we'll remind you all to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell. And we would greatly appreciate that. I can't remember what our subscription numbers went up to. We've increased by about 20 to 30 subscribers, so we appreciate that since we've been doing these new creative content videos, and so we enjoy doing them. As always, Justin likes talking about football. I like asking him questions and poking a little fun at him. So we're gonna keep this thing going, and
That's right.
we'll keep doing cool stuff like this. Some videos I'm hoping to branch out and maybe not just do me and Justin talking all the time. Maybe I'll have some more special guests on and at some point sometime. So I'll keep working on this and make it a little bit better for everybody. So hope you, for your Commodore fans out there, enjoy the content. And as always, we'll remind everybody to please join vandysports.com. Um, been around for a long time. Sign up for a year, equals $9.95 a month. Get all the Commodore inside scoop on football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting as well. So, heck of a deal. So, we are part of the Rivals.com empire, so we appreciate that. And with that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about the defensive line, Justin, and obviously the rosters have been updated, but we'll kind of talk about, I guess, what happened last year, just in terms of defensive line. What was kind of your takeaway from the defensive line play overall last year?
Well, if you remember this past season, they come out on an absolute tear in the first game against Texas A&M. It was like Texas A&M couldn't block them, and they ended up winning like the best position group from Pro Football Focus.
Mm-hmm.
For what they did that week, and then
I mean,
the
Davion
rest.
Davis had a heck of a game too.
Absolutely, and then the rest of the year it wasn't quite like that. I think a lot of people have put a lot of blame on them for what went on defensively in that thing. I think that's a little unfair. I think Dow did an excellent job. I think Andre Mance was, a really good football player. Davion Davis, just like we talked about there. I think he's really good. Um, they weren't consistent, and I don't think the next level behind them was good at all the entire year. I do think Ethan Barr got to the point that he was a pretty decent linebacker back there behind it, but early on in the season, linebacker play was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be interesting now seeing them go from the odd front going to an even front.
Right.
That's definitely going to be something to check out.
Yeah, that's one of the big storylines coming into this year. Obviously, switching to a 4-3 base type of defense, and obviously you mentioned two key guys will be missing along the defensive line: Andre Mintz and Deo Odeyingbo. Vanderbilt's two best defensive players last year, according to Pro Football Focus, they were the top two
Right.
guys. So obviously, so significant loss there in terms of defensive end play. So that's obviously something we're going to talk about moving forward. So I'll flip the script here on the Vision Quest and bring up the D-line roster here. And we'll take a look at that. Obviously, like I just mentioned, Mintz and Odimbo, they're gone defensive end wise. So let's maybe start there, Justin. What do you kind of see, on this updated roster? Who's going to take those places, and who do you think's the best candidates to take those guys' places this year?
Well, that's a really good question. I think out of the group, you can find some defensive tackles. I think some of those guys, that's played in there, as that that can play defensive tackle, such as Davion Davis and Derek Green and some of those guys. But once you get toward who's going to play defensive end, that's when it you can't really see some of those guys there. But you got Alex Williams, the transfer from Ohio State. It'll be
Hmm.
interesting to see how he is. Christian James, which is a guy that you were talking about early, that surprisingly had a really good score when it comes to Pro Football Focus.
Yeah, let me throw
And
that in there. Christian
yeah,
James was the third best defensive lineman that graded out. He graded out a 68, according to Pro Football Focus. So he actually graded out really well according to Pro Football Focus. Carry on, Justin.
and then you got Nate Clifton, Lorenzo Sugars. That's another one that can play in there. And then you also got Rutger Rietmeyer, which is somebody that I've been particularly high on in the past because for some reason he seems to make plays. And it wasn't this the when he jumped off the film at me a little bit, it wasn't this past year against Tennessee, but the year before. It would just seem like Rietmeyer just made play after play after play. And I just think that maybe a scheme change, maybe that's something that may help him. Maybe he wasn't, big enough to play in there in that front, do some of the two gap stuff and all of that. So, maybe moving to the 4-3 and letting him play some strong side defensive end, maybe that helps him out. And then also too, when you're talking about moving from a 3-4 to a 40 look, then you're also talking about some guys that's played outside linebacker in the past that may now see themselves with the hand in the dirt and doing those things. And then, Elijah McAllister, that's one of those guys, 6'6", 245 pounds, somebody that could do that. And then your other one that, possibly could do that is Michael Owusu. That's another guy, 6'5", 240 pounds. The thing when you're looking at your defensive ends, the thing that potentially scares you there is who's going to put pressure on the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose Dow and you lose Andre Mintz, two guys that were actually excellent pass rushers, who are going to be the guys that are going to be able to rush the passer from the defensive end position? And in football and the way the offenses are and the way they throw it and do different things nowadays, if you're not putting pressure on the quarterback, then it's going to be tough. And if you have to blitz to put pressure on the quarterback, it's going to be tough. So, who out of those guys develops into the pass rusher that you need? Personally, just looking at it, you would think that Elijah McAllister would be that guy. But then again, we're not 100% sure if he's even going to play defensive end at the moment. But, I just think body type wise, that's probably where he's going to end up.
Right. I like your philosophy there. I mean, obviously, when you make a switch to 4-3, I think you're going to see some linebackers come up, and I think you mentioned the two best candidates right there: McAllister, who was out last year, and then Michael Owusu would be naturals to kind of
Right.
move up and be defensive end. Otherwise, I mean, you look at the D line group. Uh, you mentioned Christian James. I mean, he would be another candidate that would probably be a DN type of guy. But
Right.
you know, McAllister or Lucid, those guys are a little bit different in terms of their build and length and all that. So they bring a little bit of a different dynamic to, in terms of rushing the passer and things like that. And that's where you gotta, that's key, man. And you mentioned you lose guys like Dio and you lose Andre Mintz, and I mean that's a lot of production to replace there at those defensive end positions.
Right, and the thing about McAllister is he healthy? You know, that's kind of been his thing since he's been at Vanderbilt, but he's definitely got some fast twitch to him, and you know, those are the type guys that are going to be able to rush the passer. That's something that you need. The big wild card there is going to be Alex Williams.
Mhm.
You know, if you just think Ohio State transfer, 6'6", 260 pounds, you know, what is he going to bring to the table? Is he going to be able to rush the passer?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, Williams sat out last year, for the transfer because he was transferred. But yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. How much of an impact is he going to make? And then, you obviously have potential to swing those linebackers, McAllister and Wusu, down to defensive ends. And yeah, I mean, you got opportunities here. When you're switching fronts, you're gonna have to. There's probably going to be some people labeled linebackers that actually be DNs. So. Um,
Right.
a guy you mentioned before we hit record, Rashad Wilkins, obviously, JUCO guy that came in. What do you like about him? I mean, he had some flashes last year. What did you like about him? Just watching him play overall.
Well, I thought that he was one of definitely the surprises on the defense because going into the year, nobody was talking about Rashawn Wilkins um, along the defensive line, and I just think that like you said, he had some flashes. Now, I don't think he was just consistently good throughout the year, but somebody to be 6'3", 300 pounds, I thought he moved extremely well. And I just think coming into this year, you know, his ability to play the three technique and uh, do some of those things and probably be, you know, pretty aggressive in there. I think it's going to be something that's going to be able to help him. And, you know, and something that me and you talked about here before we did this is something I really like is the fact that you got Javon Hay coaching your defensive ends.
Hmm.
And then you got Rectorfield who's coming in, that's going to coach your defensive tackles. And, you know, I actually really like that from the standpoint of it gives Javon Hayes somebody that's played in the NFL, that's played in those 40 type systems. You know, that's something that he knows, that's his expertise, that's something he can do. And I think him just coaching two guys is going to be really good. Then you bring in Brechterfield, who's been at Pitt, he's been at Wisconsin, you know, and he's going to be able to work with those defensive tackles, you know, somebody that's worked with Aaron Donald in the past. And those things, I think it's something that's going to help that defensive line unit out tremendously.
Yeah, and another thing I think that sticks out too about this defensive line is that they're deep. And obviously you got some issues and who you want to plug in the defensive end, which we noticed that. But you look at their years, junior, senior, very experienced group right here, and probably would you think that this group would be the most the most depth at defensive line Vanderbilt's had, or was it maybe last year's? I guess. What do you think?
That's quite a bit of depth. I just think that there's the unknown with the defensive ends. I think, you know, with the interior, the guys that you got, you know, having big bodies like Davion Davis, Derek Green, Rashawn Wilkins, and you got Florida transfer Malik Langham. I mean, that's four pretty solid guys there that can play the interior.
Mhm.
That's impressive, you know. And then you start adding in those freshmen, which I'm sure you're going to talk about here in just a little bit. But when you start adding those guys as well, you know, you definitely got some depth there at a position that Vanderbilt has not typically had depth at in the past.
Yeah, but you know me so well because I was going to mention the freshman. So
Correct. Yeah.
obviously Marcus Bradley and Terrion Sugic, the Maryland guys, the Maryland connection coming in. Early enrollees, Bradley, 4-star guy, good, great addition for Vanderbilt. Kind of late in the process, was a former Rivals 150 prospect. Obviously, pretty significant gets for both these guys, and especially they're coming in early. Any chance you see these guys, Bradley or Sugek play early, make an impact early? What do you think about those two guys?
Well, generally, my thought process is, you know, typically in the line of scrimmage, it's hard for true freshmen to come in and play in the Southeastern Conference. But it can happen. You know, you look at Bradley Ashmore and what he was able to do along the offensive line. You know, can that happen as well along the defensive line? You know, I remember Lamar Divins back in the past. He played defensive line as a true freshman. Maybe Sugik there could do that. Marcus Bradley, you know, both of those were highly touted. And the main thing is those guys come in from the as early enrollees, so they get to come in and they don't really have any bad habits or anything like that from previous regime. Everything that Clark Lee is feeding them is the only thing that they've got at the next level. So then, you know, that's something that helps them out when they're coming into it. Um, but life as a lineman, either you're offensive or defensive, as a true freshman in the Southeastern Conference, that can be tough sledding.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, that is a look at the defensive line. Obviously, like I said, pretty deep, but curious to see who will take over those defensive end spots with Mintz and Odeyingbo gone now. So that's going to be, Vanderbilt's biggest issue on the defensive front moving forward. So, with that being said, that kind of wraps up our look at the defensive line updated rosters. So, once again, want to thank Justin Angel for his expertise. I am Sean Williams. This is VandySports.com. Always a reminder, please subscribe to VandySports.com. That yearly membership is only $9.95 a month. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell. We would greatly appreciate that. So, with that being said, we thank you guys for checking us out, tuning in again. Hope you're learning a lot, or you just think our takes are pretty terrible. But hey, regardless, we'll give you some info. All right, y'all have a good one.